Have you ever walked away from an argument feeling drained or exposed? That's not strength. It's a loss of power. The truth is, the most powerful person in the room often says nothing at all. Inspired by Niccolo Machiavelli and Stoic philosophy, this video reveals why arguing is a trap. It exposes your emotions, feeds egos, and gives others control. But silence? Silence is control. It commands respect, protects your frame, and keeps you untouchable. If you want real power, learn to say less. Number 1. Arguing reveals weaknesses. In the teachings of the Stoics, strength is measured not by how forcefully you speak, but by how firmly you remain anchored within. Arguing may appear to be a show of dominance or conviction, but in the eyes of a Stoic, it is almost always a display of vulnerability. Why? Because to argue is to react, and reaction is the first sign that you are no longer in control. Epictetus taught that the only thing truly in our power is our response. The external world, what people say, what they believe, how they judge, is beyond our control. When you step into an argument, when you feel the urge to correct, defend, or attack, you've already surrendered your peace to forces outside yourself. You've allowed someone else to reach inside your mind and pull on your emotions like strings. That's not power, that's dependence. The Stoic ideal is apatheia. Not apathy in the modern sense, but a state of being undisturbed by passions and external provocations. It is clarity under fire, calm in the storm. When someone tries to provoke you, to draw you into a heated exchange, and you remain unmoved, you are embodying the very essence of Stoic strength. Not because you are avoiding conflict out of fear, but because you recognize the trap. Argument is not a path to truth. It is a battlefield for egos. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." When someone speaks falsely or insults you, the Stoic response is not to counterattack, but to rise above, to remain centered, to understand that a man who needs to argue is often one who has not yet conquered himself. Arguing also reveals a subtle, yet dangerous truth about your inner world. It shows that you care deeply about being seen as right. And that need to be right in the eyes of others is itself a form of slavery. Seneca warns us, "He who does not prevent a crime when he can, encourages it." In the same way, he who does not master his emotions when challenged, exposes them as weaknesses to be exploited. The moment you argue, you're showing your cards. You reveal what bothers you, what you fear, and what parts of your identity are insecure. To the observant eye, these signals are invaluable. They become weapons that can be used against you in the future. A Stoic would advise, never give your enemy, or even a casual observer, that kind of access to your inner world. Consider also the futility of most arguments. As Epictetus observed, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. When two people argue, rarely are they seeking truth. Most are only seeking victory, and so they speak not to understand, but to be heard. Not to grow, but to defend. It is a clash of egos, not a meeting of minds. And for the Stoic, there is no wisdom to be found there. To refrain from arguing is not weakness, it is mastery. It signals that you are not shaken by disagreement, not baited by emotion, and not owned by the opinions of others. It shows that your inner fortress is intact, and no storm from the outside can breach it. Arguing is loud, emotional, and reactive. Silence, on the other hand, is measured, deliberate, and powerful. And it is the Stoic who chooses silence, not because he lacks the words, but because he no longer needs to speak them. Number 2, silence creates power. In the eyes of the Stoic, silence is not emptiness, it is presence. It is the conscious decision to remain undisturbed by the chaos of others. To the untrained mind, silence looks like passivity. But to the Stoic, it is an act of supreme strength, because it is governed by reason, not impulse. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled an empire while practicing Stoicism, wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That line alone reveals the core of Stoic action: quiet, resolute, intentional. Silence in this view is not a retreat. It is a statement, a refusal to lower oneself into noise. In moments of conflict, silence creates an unmistakable shift in energy. When you refuse to engage, others are left to wrestle with their own thoughts. You become unreadable, calm, mysterious, and unaffected. This forces others to reflect on themselves instead of staying focused on attacking you. That discomfort, that confusion, that's power. While the emotional person spills everything through words, fear, pride, insecurity, the silent person reveals nothing. And in revealing nothing, he gives nothing away. He holds the frame, he stays in control. As the Stoics would say, he practices ataraxia, a lucid state of equanimity where external disturbances fail to penetrate the inner fortress of the mind. Silence is not submission, it's strategy. It allows you to observe, to listen, and to choose your actions with surgical precision. Seneca reminded us that speech, even when short, should be carefully weighed. But silence? Silence often says more than 1,000 careless words ever could. There's also something deeply unsettling about a person who doesn't react when provoked. Most people expect a reaction. They feed off drama. But when you don't give them what they want, when you remain composed, still, and silent, you force them to face themselves. And most people are not ready for that kind of confrontation. In leadership, in relationships, even in everyday conversations, silence becomes a commanding presence. It demands respect because it shows mastery. It says, I don't need to prove myself to you. I don't need to win this moment. I've already won by not playing your game. The Stoic understands. When you speak, you plant seeds in others' minds. But when you are silent, others project onto you. They wonder what you're thinking, they question their own behavior, they reflect. And in that pause, you gain control. So the next time you feel the urge to defend yourself, to argue back, to prove your point, pause, breathe. Remember that silence isn't weakness. It's a weapon, and the one who wields it well holds more influence than the one who shouts to be heard. Number 3, arguing surrenders your frame. To argue is to enter a mental battlefield where you've already lost control. The moment you engage in an argument, you concede power to the other person, regardless of who wins the exchange. The Stoics, with their deep understanding of self-mastery, knew that to allow another person to dictate the terms of your emotional state is to surrender the very thing that gives you strength. Your frame. A frame is your personal narrative, the way you see the world, your beliefs, your values, and your emotional boundaries. When you argue, you allow someone else to impose their frame on you. You acknowledge their perspective, their agenda, and you risk losing your sense of self. This is what happens when you're pulled into someone else's emotional drama. Whether It's a disagreement, an insult, or even just a trivial exchange. In Stoic philosophy, one of the key tenets is that we are the masters of our own perceptions and reactions. Epictetus in particular taught that we are not disturbed by the events themselves, but by our judgments of those events. When you argue, you allow the other person's judgments to shape how you react. You give up your own frame, and in doing so, you give them power over you. Seneca remarked, "A man is not good because of what he says, but because of what he does." The Stoics would never lower themselves to squabble over words or be drawn into petty debates. They understood that arguing is often a distraction from true inner peace and self-control. Instead of engaging in verbal combat, the wise remain steadfast in their own beliefs, unaffected by the emotional turbulence of others. The problem with arguments is that they're rarely about finding truth or achieving mutual understanding. Instead, they are usually about winning, about showing who's right and who's wrong. But the Stoic knows that there is no virtue in being right in the eyes of others. True virtue comes from remaining aligned with your own values, regardless of external pressures. And when you argue, you risk compromising those values just to secure a momentary victory. Take a moment to think about it. When you argue, what happens? You feel yourself being pulled into someone else's emotional narrative. You may start defending points that don't even matter, getting lost in the noise just to win the argument. The moment you defend yourself is the moment you lose yourself. You stop being the calm, rational observer of your thoughts and become a participant in someone else's drama. The Stoic approach is clear. Stay true to your frame. When provoked, the Stoic does not react impulsively or rashly. Instead, he remains grounded in his values, letting external chaos wash over him without disturbing his inner peace. He knows that no matter how hard someone may try to pull him into their narrative, he controls his own emotional state. This control is not about suppressing emotions or avoiding confrontation. It's about maintaining awareness and clarity of mind. You do not have to react to everything that challenges you. By refusing to engage, by maintaining your frame, you gain power over the situation. This is why the Stoics emphasize the importance of self-control, because only through controlling our reactions can we preserve our sense of self. So when you feel the urge to argue, take a step back. Ask yourself, am I holding my frame, or have I just let someone else pull me into their story? By remaining silent and composed, you not only protect your sense of self, but also maintain control over the situation. Number 4, silence protects. Silence is more than just an absence of words. It is an active shield. In a world where opinions fly fast and words can cut deep, silence offers a powerful form of protection. It acts as an impenetrable barrier that prevents others from invading your mental space, your emotional boundaries, and your sense of self. The Stoics understood that while external events are beyond our control, our response to those events is entirely within our power. They believed that our minds should be like fortresses, strong, solid, and resistant to the storms that rage around us. In this fortress, silence serves as both a defense mechanism and a strategic tool. When you remain silent in the face of provocation, you force others to confront themselves. Their words bounce off you like rain against a wall. You don't give them any emotional fuel to keep the fire of conflict burning. Instead, you stand firm, untouched by their attempts to draw you into their drama. This silence, while seemingly passive, is one of the most powerful forms of self-protection available to you. Consider this: when someone insults you, argues with you, or tries to manipulate you with their words, they are attempting to get inside your mind. They want to affect your emotional state. They want you to react. In that moment, if you engage in the argument, you've allowed them to succeed. You've let their words disturb your peace. But when you choose silence, you create a space where their words have no power over you. This is where the true power of silence lies. It forces others to confront their own actions, not yours. In a way, it's a form of psychological jujitsu. Instead of meeting force with force, you redirect it by offering no resistance. You make them question their own behavior, their own intentions, because you're no longer playing by their rules. In the same way, silence forces people to exhaust themselves. It's a subtle yet effective way of draining the energy out of an argument. Without your emotional response, the conflict fizzles. Without you to engage, there's no one left to argue with. You're not caught up in the back and forth. Instead, you stand strong in your own center, unwavering and silent. And as they throw their words at you, they wear themselves out. This is one of the greatest strengths of silence. It protects you from being dragged into emotional turmoil. The Stoic idea of apatheia, not to be confused with apathy, aligns perfectly with this. Apatheia means being unmoved by the emotional chaos around us. It's not that you don't feel, it's that you choose to remain unaffected by the things that could throw you off balance. Silence is the perfect manifestation of this principle. By not reacting, you protect your emotional state from being hijacked by external forces. To practice silence is to protect your dignity, your mental clarity, and your peace. The philosopher and Stoic Epictetus stated, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Silence gives you the power to choose your reaction, or rather, to not react at all. It creates a barrier between you and the external forces that might otherwise disturb your calm. And the beauty of this protection is that it's not just for conflict, it's a defense in all aspects of life, against the pressures of society, against the judgments of others, against the temptations to engage in trivial distractions. Silence offers you the space to hold your ground, to remain true to your values, and to preserve your mental and emotional energy. So, when life throws challenges your way, remember, silence is your greatest shield. It keeps your mind clear, your heart unburdened, and your spirit unshaken. Number 5. Strategic silence. Silence is not about avoidance or passivity. It's a tool, a strategy that requires mindfulness, intention, and purpose. To the Stoics, silence was an art, one that allowed you to preserve your dignity, control your responses, and make the most powerful move when the time was right. Strategic silence is not simply about refraining from talking. It's about choosing silence at the right moments. It's about knowing when to speak and when to remain quiet, understanding the impact your words can have, and using silence as a weapon to influence, not just protect. The Stoics recognize that there's strength in restraint. Sometimes the greatest power comes from saying nothing at all. When you engage in silence strategically, you take control of the narrative. You remain in command of your mental state and don't allow external noise to dictate your emotions. It's not about running away from conflict, but about approaching it with precision and clarity. The wise Stoic would know that speaking at the wrong moment could tarnish his reputation, compromise his values, or even provoke unnecessary conflict. Sometimes silence is the only way to stay true to oneself and avoid becoming entangled in the drama of others. Seneca, in his letters, speaks of the value of withholding your opinions until the moment is ripe. He suggests that just like a skilled warrior waits for the opportune moment to strike, the wise man waits for the perfect time to speak, ensuring that his words carry weight. When you choose to remain silent in the face of provocation, you give yourself time to assess the situation. Consider your response and respond with greater wisdom. It's about taking the high ground, observing carefully, and waiting for the right time to act, not reacting out of impulse. In the realm of leadership, this strategic silence becomes even more crucial. Leaders who speak too quickly, who react impulsively, often lose the respect of their followers. In contrast, leaders who know when to remain silent command respect because their words carry authority. Silence in leadership isn't about being distant or indifferent. It's about showing wisdom and discernment. By observing the dynamics around you, by remaining silent in moments of tension, you signal that you are not easily swayed by emotions or petty conflicts. Your calm, composed presence becomes an anchor for others to follow. Even in personal relationships, strategic silence can be a powerful tool. When someone says something that irks you or challenges your beliefs, it's easy to jump into defense mode and argue back, but the Stoic approach is different. Instead of reacting to the other person's words, you pause, you breathe. You allow yourself the space to respond thoughtfully, if at all. This strategic silence allows you to avoid unnecessary conflict, giving you the opportunity to maintain your dignity and preserve the relationship, rather than escalating tensions. This isn't to say that silence is always the answer. The Stoics were far from passive. They knew that silence could sometimes be the greatest form of action. But just as you would carefully choose when to speak, you must also choose when to remain silent. It's about cultivating awareness. The awareness to recognize the right moment to speak, and the wisdom to know when silence will be more effective than words. Strategic silence is not a passive retreat. It's an active form of self-control and wisdom. It allows you to step back from the noise, assess the situation with clarity, and respond with precision when the time is right. In that moment, your silence becomes your greatest strength. Number 6. Emotional mastery. In the world of Stoicism, emotional mastery is not just a virtue, it's the bedrock of personal power. The Stoics understood that emotions, while natural, are often fleeting and external. They are reactions to the events around us and, as such, are not inherently within our control, but our responses to those emotions. That is where true power lies, and silence is the key to mastering this control. When you engage in an argument or give in to emotional reactions, you surrender the ability to control your responses. Emotions, when unchecked, can cause us to react impulsively, to say things we don't mean, and to act against our own values. But a Stoic doesn't allow emotions to dictate their behavior. Instead, they practice apatheia, the ability to remain unmoved by external stimuli. They understand that emotional reactions are temporary and do not define their character. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reflects on the importance of controlling one's emotions. When you are distressed by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. This encapsulates the Stoic belief that we are not at the mercy of our emotions. We can choose how we respond to them. Silence becomes a tool in this process. a way to pause, to observe our emotional state, and to choose a rational response rather than being swept away by impulse. Emotional mastery through silence isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about creating the space between stimulus and reaction, where you can choose how to respond. By remaining silent, you refuse to let external events govern your emotional state. Instead of reacting immediately to a comment that angers you or a situation that frustrates you, you give yourself time to breathe, reflect, and then choose how to proceed. This silence also allows you to detach from the emotional pull of others. When someone tries to provoke you, whether through criticism, insults, or manipulation, silence gives you the ability to remain detached from their emotional energy. Their words, their actions, no longer have the power to disrupt your inner peace. By staying silent, you create a buffer, protecting yourself from emotional entanglement and reclaiming control over your own state of mind. Emotional mastery is not about never feeling anger, frustration, or hurt. It's about not allowing these emotions to control your behavior or your actions. The Stoics believe that true freedom comes from the ability to choose your responses, regardless of how you feel. Silence is the perfect tool for this because it allows you to step out of the emotional storm, giving you time to assess your feelings, reflect on the situation, and respond in a way that aligns with your values. In practical terms, emotional mastery through silence allows you to maintain your dignity in difficult situations. When someone challenges you, when someone tries to insult you or provoke you into a heated argument, you don't let your emotions take the lead. Instead, you remain composed, controlled, and focused on your inner peace. You don't waste energy trying to win every battle. Instead, you reserve your emotional energy for the things that truly matter. The Stoic idea of eudaimonia, living in accordance with virtue and reason, demands that we cultivate emotional resilience. Silence plays a critical role in this by allowing us to practice patience, to pause before reacting, and to choose our responses wisely. It is through this practice of emotional mastery that we move closer to becoming the person we aspire to be. Someone who is not easily shaken, who remains steady in the face of adversity, and who can navigate life with calm and clarity. So, the next time you feel your emotions surging, remember that silence is your ally. It grants you the time and space to master your emotional responses and ensures that you respond from a place of clarity, not chaos. Number 7, respect through silence. In a world where people often seek validation, attention, and recognition, silence stands as a form of profound respect, not just for others, but for oneself. To the Stoics, respect was not something to be demanded. It was something to be earned through actions, not words. And in many ways, silence is the most respectful thing you can offer to yourself and to others. Respect through silence comes from understanding that true self-worth does not depend on constant affirmation or the need to defend oneself. The Stoic knows that by speaking less and acting more deliberately, he can earn respect from others, not through boasting, but through calm strength and wisdom. Seneca once said, "Silence is a lesson learned in the quietude of the soul. It is through silence that we show others that our value is not tied to their approval or the need to be heard. We do not seek validation from the world around us. Instead, we let our actions and the peace we project speak for themselves. When we remain silent, we demonstrate control. We resist the urge to argue, to explain, or to justify ourselves. We do not feel the need to fill every space with our voice. In doing so, we invite others to respect us for our composure, our restraint, and our ability to remain grounded in our values. The most respected figures are often those who do not rush to speak, but instead wait for the right moment. Those who listen more than they talk, who observe more than they react. Silence gives off an aura of dignity, making people think twice before challenging you, knowing that you cannot easily be moved by their words or opinions. By practicing silence, we show that we value our peace more than the fleeting approval of others. We become less concerned with winning the argument and more concerned with maintaining our integrity. The Stoic practice of self-mastery teaches that we should not seek external validation to feel worthy. We are already worthy as we are, and silence allows us to project that self-worth with confidence, without the need to prove it through words. The respect that comes from silence also stems from the power of observation. When we remain silent, we allow others to reveal themselves. In conversations, arguments, or confrontations, silence can create space for people to expose their true intentions, motives, and character. When you speak less, you learn more. You see through the facade, and you allow others to show who they really are. This gives you the opportunity to respect others for who they are, or to distance yourself from them if they are not worthy of your respect. This respect is not just about how others perceive you. It is also about how you perceive yourself. By practicing silence, you reaffirm your own values and principles. You do not need the approval of others to feel validated. Your self-respect comes from within, from the way you live in accordance with your virtues and how you maintain your composure in difficult situations. Silence, in this sense, becomes a reflection of your inner confidence, a quiet but firm assertion of your worth. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In moments of conflict, when provoked or challenged, silence is the most powerful form of revenge. By refusing to engage in petty arguments or emotional reactions, you rise above the situation. You show that you are above the fray, unmoved by the attempts to drag you down. In this way, your silence not only commands respect, but also shields you from the destructive forces of pride and ego that can come from unnecessary conflict. In the end, silence is not just about avoiding the noise of the world. It is about standing firm in your own sense of self-respect and allowing your actions and presence to speak louder than any words could. By embracing silence, you create a space where true respect can flourish, from yourself and others. Silence is not the absence of sound. It's a powerful tool for control, self-mastery, and respect. The Stoics understood that choosing silence over argument preserves your peace, protects your dignity, and commands respect. It allows you to respond with wisdom, rather than reacting impulsively, giving you the power to remain unmoved by external noise. In a world full of distractions and constant validation, silence is a rare strength. It shields you from emotional turmoil, helps you maintain composure, and ensures your actions speak louder than words. So, next time you're faced with conflict or provocation, remember, silence is your greatest strength. It's not about avoiding confrontation. It's about mastering your response and staying true to your values. Thanks for watching. If this video resonated with you, like, share, and subscribe. Stay stoic. Stay silent when it counts.